You are in for an interesting ride.
Hello folks, and whilst I still am taking a bit of a hiatus from my normal interviewing, I am still doing some work with Dowsing Detective and Remote Viewer, Peter Vincent, and he kind of persuaded me that it would be quite interesting if we could just do a piece on the ghosty things that he's experienced and heard about at the Royal Hotel in Weymouth, which is where he and his lovely wife Elizabeth go for a little break. This time, I do believe he actually saw something. I'm going to give you a little history of this hotel, and it's on the southwest coast for anybody who doesn't know, in Dorset, UK. And it is also famous as a place where, in Lyme Regis, there have been interesting skeletons found from ancient times. But we'll come to that a bit later. In the meantime, back to the ghosts. The Royal Hotel is right on the beach. Well, Weymouth was a place where back in the day, when it began to become fashionable, a thing to do to take the sea and to go visit the seaside for a while for health reasons particularly, the more genteel folk, let's say, were complaining that there were no real appropriate accommodations. So a hotel was built called Stacey's, and that was built in about 1773. Then in 1805, it changed its name to the Royal after a visit by King George III. And then there was a fire in an adjacent building, and that fire extended over to the Royal. It was demolished in 1891 and then reopened in 1899. There was a mum and two female children who perished in the fire. They went up to the roof looking for an escape, and that's where they perished. Since that time, it seems that the hotel has been featuring them as regular guests, and even as well as the guests, the hotel staff have been subjected to their comings and goings and doings. There's also a gentleman, and Peter will explain that. It's all very fascinating. So he created a unique code for female adult ghost, male adult ghost, and then a child ghost female and a child ghost male. He reports that he never did find any response to the child ghost that was male. We'll have a look at those codes, and guys, this is something that you could do. Peter was once asked by the owner of the ancient Ram Inn in Gloucester to actually go on site. But of course, Peter can do just as well without being on site. So we never did go. But there's a lovely lady called Kel Atkinson, and she's been doing some paranormal investigations for the ancient Ram Inn there. And there is one picture that I've snipped from a little TikTok video she did showing that there was a child's handprint on a bed that she had just straightened out. Fascinating stuff. What to do is just give you a quick overview of some of the contents of this episode. We've got our ghosts, and then Peter does a quick revisit to Oak Island, another area where he thinks that the treasure is. So we'll hear a little bit more about that, and then we're going to look at Boudicca. So Boudicca was that feisty, wonderful woman who died about 60 or 61 AD when she was fighting off the Romans, ahead of a revolution against the Roman invasion or the Roman colonization. And then we have a quick look at the aerial school where in Rua in 1994, this craft landed and many children saw a being as well as the craft and were communicated with by the beings. But we're just going to have a look at this instance, the location, to check out whether the UFO code responds. On my way back from my little trip out, say to Peter if he was around, I'd call him for a cup of tea with him and Elizabeth. And they were, so he said, oh, this is quite exciting. There has been a new finding of a sonar image of something in Loch Ness. We join Peter Vincent, a Remote Viewer and Dowsing Detective, firstly on ghosts. Hold on to your hats, everybody. It's going to be a very interesting ride. So, Peter, just give us a little backstory.
I always take my codes with me when I go on holiday, and occasionally we do little 1 week trips or weekend trips to various places, and one of the places we go to is Weymouth. I stay at the Royal Hotel Weymouth. On the first trip, I discovered that it was a ghost hotel. It was a bit on the internet at the time, and our paranormal groups had been into the hotel under the old management, that was, because it's changed hands since. One of the stories was that there was a female and 2 children on the 4th floor that was actually the roof in the 1700s, because the building next door caught fire and the family got onto the roof, but they couldn't get rescued, so they perished. Now that roof area is now the 4th floor in the sloping roof. I then made some codes for ghosts, and I sort of interacted with the ghosts. Well, we had a little rest in the afternoon, and all of a sudden we heard children giggling and running up and down wooden floorboards. So I went down to reception after we got up and had our rest, and they said, "We've got no children in the hotel and all our floors are carpeted, and the only area is the ballroom in the sub-basement that has obviously a ballroom doesn't have carpet on the floor." There we are. So talking to the staff said, "Oh yes, well in one room on the 4th, my shoelaces get undone. When I go in, they're done up and then they get undone." And then one day I was sitting down in the bar by the steps coming up into the main entrance, and there was a side window, and I noticed this resident in the hotel having a chat to this man who was all dressed in black with a black sort of very out of fashion hat, a watch chain, silver top stick and starched shirt, looking out to sea. And I observed him and I thought, but he's out of sync of time. So it was a 6:30 meal time, and they both came up the steps into the dining room. The guest, of course, stayed in the dining room, but the man in black went down the end and turned left into the kitchen. So I spoke to the resident after, so I said, "Who was that chap you were talking to?" "Oh, a very erudite man, said he comes in here regularly for his meals." So I went to the reception desk and I said, "Do you have people from the street coming in to have meals?" "Oh no, it's only the guests. If they want a bar meal, then they go in the bar the other side and they have cheese on toast or something like that, you know. But nobody comes in other than the booked-in guests."
So you actually saw this gentleman?
Yeah, he was the pot man who lives in the basement and is always ghostified as a male ghost in the basement. And
all right, Peter, so can we just clarify the era we're talking about for these lovely ghosty folks?
well, they're all in the sort of mid-1700s. This was a gaming establishment at the time, and there was like a hostelry next door, and the fire took place in this area here and then stretched to what is now the 4th floor along here. So this building apparently went up and then has been rebuilt since. And that was obviously being rebuilt. So this is where the female ghosts are on the top floor, and in the basement, which would be round the back here, under this establishment here, basement to ground floor, you'd have the ghost. I actually gave the staff a demonstration of this a couple of years back and showed them, and they had to go and they could pick up the ghost in the basement, you know, because we've recently come back from the hotel, and this is why I did extensive research into this before I went. And I had a word again with the cleaning staff. She said, "Yes, it's my left shoelace they undo in the room when I'm on the 4th floor." And I spoke to another cleaner and they said, "Yes, well, my husband and I, we owned a pub, and it was a haunted pub. We were on, I think she mentioned the Kyle show on haunting pubs and things like that on the TV about it. But since they must have sold the pub."
And doesn't something else happen as well?
The 1st floor, one of the cleaners there said she could hear the spray can going, but the spray can was on the side, and it was obviously a time and space dimensional situation, because basically you hear the spray can going off, but there was nobody there. Now, in my recent stay, we had the electric fan go off in the room, but the fan was unplugged in the cupboard.
And that's in your room?
In the room that we were on the 1st floor, yeah. Also, as I said, in the previous ownership of the hotel, when guests arrived at the hotel, children could sometimes be seen at the bottom of the stairs, sort of looking at the guests as they come in. Now, this raises an interesting thing, because basically, when I'm dealing with the female ghosts, they're energy-wise, I don't see them. I can hear them sometimes, but I don't see them. And you can measure their energy with L rods or pendulum or whatever is over maps. But the problem is this, that the male ghost, having been seen on the steps of the hotel, I've noticed he actually wanders out of the hotel. I found him going to the promenade unit across the road, and I've also found him walking along to one of the other present-day inns and hosteleries along the end of the road. Picked him up in there. And this usually happens on a Sunday. Well, I believe it was possibly a Sunday that we saw him on the steps. Another thing that happens on a Sunday, and I've never noticed this during the week, is the female and the two children go down to the ballroom, so you can pick them all up in the ballroom.
So what are we looking at Ghosts? So we've got a sort of a mum and
two children, two daughters, yeah.
Two daughters.
Yeah. And the thing is, and a man in the basement. So they are wandering around the hotel, and now, because the maintenance man said that he had his tools on the stairs, and he said 1 minute they were there, next minute they're gone. Now, we've experienced this with Elrods.
We have, haven't we?
In the park, when we were doing...
Yeah, when we were doing testing for craft.
Points to the fact that are time and space dimensions, and they're able to come out of their dimension very quickly and take things and then go back, so you can't see them. But you can feel the energy. Once you go into that other dimension, you can't feel the solid of it, but you can measure the energy of it. So any form in the past or the future can radiate its energy into our dimension of space and time, and it might only be a quarter of a second difference.
And I can tell you what, I never did find my rod,
and
which
I've
was
had
a
them
copper
taken.
one.
I've had one taken on holiday in Greece, an L rod. Yeah, and also when I was in a police car going to Hurst Wood to look at a possible burial there, which we'd found, and in actual fact we used a code. And although we didn't dig anything around the area, we proved it worked because we found a skull of a squirrel on the same code because it finds decayed bone. We don't know where that other rod went. It was never found again. And I've actually walked up Mount Pleasant where I lived, and I've had papers under my thing here, and they've been snatched.
Oh, really?
And somebody else worked in one of the shops locally. She says, well, I regularly communicate with them, and I leave things for them because they get ill like everybody else in their time, and I try to help them. And they move things along the mantelpiece, and they also leave things that don't belong to me as a little thank you. And I'm wondering whether some of this stuff that I find overseas, the old stuff, is actually being left by them for me to find.
Well, yeah, some of the artifacts and stuff.
If they're actually able to do this, then they're leaving things that you might want to find from their time into my time. So I'm wondering what they're taking from my time into their time.
Let's have a look now.
So here's the fourth floor here.
Right.
So looking at this, the wandering ghosts are mainly up in this area here on the fourth floor, which is now in the roof, because it's obviously a flat top. So basically, these are the codes which I struck. So here's a female ghost, has orange at the bottom, an adult female ghost. Here's a child female ghost that has blue at the bottom. And then because female has silver in and male doesn't, it's the same code without the silver. So a male ghost, orange at the bottom, and then the child male ghost, blue at the bottom. And I've never been able to use the child male ghost in this establishment. Only these three here. So the thing is, before I went, I decided to do a very in-depth thing using these codes, and I did a rough drawing of the full floor here.
So then we've got a plan here.
The full floor, and I put the full floor into sections, right, as you go along. And then I did a time and place and date of when the female ghosts were, and then roughly what section they were noted here, and logged it in ink at the bottom. So this is the lift shaft and the stairs going down that splits the building in two. So I managed to record all of that before we went.
So let's get a look at some of the... You've done a lot of work here, Peter. I know...
I did pencil over here with pendulums over here, and then logging it in ink down here.
Right. Okay. So that's the same data.
Yeah, same data, but roughly keeping them up here. And then
that's a lot, Peter.
I kept the original, and then I put the codes on here, which I scanned to other people. So anybody can use these codes. The ghost researcher can cut these out print them out, cut them out, put them on card with some blue tack, and then hold them in their hand with a pair of L rods, and they'll be able to pick up male or female ghost or child male or female ghost. So it's a shared piece of knowledge.
So when our French colleague asked you to do a bit of research, can you just give us...
Yes, well, Marco from France emailed me because he knew about the system I operate and said, look, there's an address in California. He was doing work with the X-Files, the staff of the X-Files. And he said, there's this address in California. Could I go over it, please, to see what I could find? I've got hundreds of codes for all different things. So I've got abduction codes as well for people who've been abducted. So I went over the property, because he gave me the postal code in California, in Beverly Hills. I found that the son lived at the back and the parents had a bedroom at the front, and that the son and the mother had been abducted. And I always check property to see if there's a ghost. And I picked up a female ghost in the property. When I picked that up on the map, the energy ran out of the house down the road. And because obviously when I wasn't doing it, it went back in the house. And it then ran back out again.
Do you think that was in response to...
Yes, it's picking me up,
yes.
Picking it up. So it was a female ghost. So I wrote my whole report to Marco, and he said, that's absolutely amazing. He said, she's actually written a book about the female ghosts they live in within the house.
Wow. Well, the Ancient Ram Inn.
Oh, yes, the Ancient Ram Inn, yes. Caroline asked me to go over that inn in Gloucestershire. It goes back to the year 1050. She asked me whether I'd go over to find out whether there were burials along the foundations of the thing, because it used to be part of a monastery at one time until the monastery then dissolved and then it was turned into an inn. Also, there was some leaking water into one of the basements and they wanted to know where the water was coming from. So I went over this map, drew it out, and I found indeed burials along the side of the car park at the foundations of the inn, and I found burials across the road, which she didn't ask me to look for, and I found them. And I found where the water was coming from because there was a spring going under the property across the road, but there was a branch off that was coming into the basement. And then I thought, just out of sheer interest, I would check the property to see, because it's very old, were there any ghosts? And I picked up two. And they were moving about just like they do on this hotel. So I emailed her and she said, you picked up Albert. I said, I didn't mention anything about it, but Albert and a friend always drank in this inn, but they died in a fire. This is strange, a fire again in the building next door. And this was their favourite hostelry, so they decided to stay here permanently and they move about. Now, I understand that other paranormal groups have been in there and found the same using their equipment. But the thing is, this was done remotely from Kent over Gloucestershire. I mean,
shows you how powerful the system is.
Kent to California. And she said, oh, yes, and you have picked the burials up across the road. They were monks who died when the abbey or the monastery was there. And she said, I never mentioned anything to her about it. And she'd love us to go down, but the trouble is, I don't drive, and it's quite a long way. We are remote viewers. We do things remotely. But the thing is, this is...
If somebody paid us a nice fee to go down and make a nice little programme out of it, maybe we'd consider it.
Actually, living in a multi-dimensional world, one wonders how far this goes. I mean, we did this lottery thing, didn't we, about trying to get the lottery, working on this to see if I could make contact with somebody in the future to see whether they could look at the lottery numbers for me, and they refused. When I asked them what their job was, they said security. So the question is, how are they involved in all this as well? I want to show you that by printing off photographs of the areas, it seems as if the photographs will act exactly the same as if you were walking into the room.
Yes,
So
same,
they
it
act
holds
as a
the
portal.
energy.
They act as a portal.
Well, I wouldn't have used that word,
So
but that's an interesting
let's have a little
one.
go at this now.
So what we're looking at now,
Yeah.
Peter has taken some photographs and enlarged them
Yeah.
of the areas in the Royal Hotel where these ghosties have been seen.
Let's hope that the male ghost in the basement is not gone out walkies, because it's very strange. I've never found that the female ghost goes walkies out, or the children. They stay within the framework of the building, but this thing seems to, go out. So if there's ghost energy within the portal between here and there, it should basically cross. Let's do this one here. Yeah, very strong that.
So show me what we're looking at.
Well,
just
this is
there,
the basement ballroom, the wooden floor.
Okay.
And these are the chairs where they sit down. And then the staircase comes down here, and this is the bar, see? So he haunts this area here. Now, the thing is, he shouldn't be here, which is the first floor. So if I go over here, there is no response. You see? But if I go here, there's a response. So I'm getting a response to ghost energy in that image there.
So we're just going to have a look again at Peter's testing to see whether the male ghost is in the ballroom.
I took some photographs around the hotel of the various areas that were known to have energy. So I go over the photograph enlarged, and definitely there is captured in there ghost energy in that image there of the bar and that area around the lift shaft there, and also here over there. The thing is, if it's here, it shouldn't be elsewhere. So therefore, if I go to the first floor here, there's no response to that whatsoever. I'll go to the fourth floor here, which is a bedroom on the fourth floor, and there's no energy there. But can I just show you something to see whether the female ghost is there? Here we are. Just see if this one, if there's something happening, because I need to get the other one out there. Yeah, female ghost.
So that is the adult female
on the
ghost
fourth
over
floor.
there, on the
Yeah,
fourth
the fourth floor. Yeah, yeah.
So are you picking her up actually in this room?
Yes,
Right.
because that's where the cleaners' shoelaces get down. Now there's another one here. Well, I'll just go over that as well.
Is that the same room?
Yeah, same
Peter?
room. It's got a bed,
Right.
one here, and it's got a double here. So it's a 3-bedded room, you know, with a bathroom in the middle. And of course the rooms are all like that along there. They're very, very smart. Right, now that section is not responding, right? But that one is. So she's here.
You can be so specific, can't
Yeah,
you?
you
Then?
can. It's just like if you're going over the actual floored map. You can find out where the energy actually is coming from.
So she's not in that part of the room with
No,
a
but
single
she's in that
bed,
part
but
of the
she's
room.
in there.
Yeah,
The
and
one with the
also
double.
we'll test this on the first floor again, because you can't be everywhere at once. You go across here like that, and there's no response whatsoever.
And that's the hallway.
Now we'll do the female ghosts in that room. This is child female ghost. So I'll just do the hallway first.
So can we have a look at that code?
Yes,
Peter, as
yes,
well?
right. Well, children's have blue at the bottom. So being female has silver, and pink and white, silver female, no silver if it's male, black and yellow for death and decay, and blue for the identification code, yeah. Just holding the thing in the hand like that, don't need an enormous code, no response there whatsoever. Right, so let's just look at the basement, because as I said, on Sundays they go down to the basement. The children do wander around, obviously, because they've been seen at the stairs. Ooh.
Oh,
That's interesting, isn't it? So
they're there on a Wednesday.
Well, but the thing is, there's 2 of them, and they do play tricks. So that's why, because the maintenance man, actually had his tools on the stairs when they sort of disappeared, and then were gracefully returned again. It was working. He said it just disappeared. Yeah, so there we are. Now the thing is this: if we've got them there, don't forget we've got 2 of them. So I wonder whether, because the mother normally knows where they are, it's not there in the bedroom.
So what are we looking for? The male child?
The female. There's no male ghost. There's no child male ghost. No, it's just 2 female children, ghosts, and a mother. So you've got 4. So the children aren't on the 4th. The mother is. So the mother's probably running around the hotel to find out where they are. Now, if I'd been this is why we heard them running up and down, because in the days that they had wooden floors, didn't have fitted carpets. Interacting with our minds, you're going back in time. I mean, it's quite strange. Now, what is interesting is I've actually got some codes for people who are alive. So pink, white and silver.
So this is for just a female.
Oh, there's a female in that bedroom at present.
Oh, right.
Let's see about this one here. Not in that side, but in that side there. So we've got a man in there. Let's have a look. There's no silver in
Actually, I picked up a couple, didn't I?
Shall we don't say about that? These codes...
Nothing is hidden.
Nothing is hidden. So I'm sorry, you can change your name, you can change your hairstyle, you can have Botox, you can have anything, but you cannot change your DNA. And I have a strange suspicion that this is linked to a DNA magnetic code system, which means that anybody cannot hide anywhere, not alive or dead, because dead, it just changes the colour barcode, but alive. So this is why we found Henry I in the car park in Reading. We didn't know that it had underground radar already, and we were both in exactly the same position.
Yeah.
So I hope that they will be able to exhume that, even put it properly in a church or somewhere, look. There's also a man in that room as well, so there's obviously a couple.
Yes, so somebody's obviously hiring the room thing over at the hotel in that room.
Yeah, if it's raining down there, then they won't be going out, will they?
Yeah.
That's about the ghost. So we follow that up because we're going again next year, hopefully. I will follow up on this. But what is interesting is that those people who do ghost walks and ghost trips, you communicate with them about this and they don't seem to follow it up. And I thought, well, this is a marvellous thing that they can show people and give them the colour code and they can have a go at sensing the ghost themselves.
I mean, there's loads of haunted and paranormal
you remember
groups
I did that
now.
experiment in North London with Alan Hayday when I went up with an entity on the train. You might call it a spirit guide. Came on the train with me. It was on a network Southeast on Sunday, and 4 seats with a table, and it was sitting in the seat opposite me on the window, and I did the rods without any other customers looking, and it crossed over that seat. So Alan picked me up at the station and we walked to the venue where it was about 20 or 30 people. I had to give him a little talk about this, and then I'd already pre-arranged a chair by the fireplace, and I just simply asked people, can you find out anything about this chair please? And they all picked up that there was an entity sitting on it. You couldn't actually see the entity.
Lovely. And this one, Peter?
It was a female ghost.
Okay, so we've got the pink, white and silver, black, yellow, and then the orange identifying there.
Yeah. Male ghost. So it just doesn't have the silver in.
Yeah. So any generic is just, without being a ghosty or anything, is just pink and white, isn't it?
Yeah.
For a live person.
Right, and then for a child female ghost, it has blue at the bottom instead.
And is that specifically designating it as a child?
As a child, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And same with the male ghost, child male ghost.
Male child, okay.
Yeah, all right. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about was I always look at Oak Island. The thing's been going on for several years, looking for this treasure on Oak Island in Nova Scotia. Some time ago I sent a map out because I'm using my gold sensory colour, which is yellow and green, and yellow's 5 and green is 6. Now that's 11. On the ancient temple chart, 11 is gold, 12 is silver, and 14 is bronze. So they represent the Olympic colours as well. So in ideology, these are the awards, but they're in reverse on the temple code. So gold has a lower number than bronze at 14, which is creation. That's why when the great emperor of China, who did the terracotta figures, he invented the first bronze coinage. He put 14 moulds in each pan. I spotted this and told the authorities, well, he used to go up the mountain. Well, you don't have to go up a mountain to pray to the gods. All you need is the colour. And just hold the rods and you can have a chit-chat with them.
Let's have a look at this map.
Right, now, so this is where the money pit is over here. And these are some tunnels I picked up on green 6. I mean, there's masses of tunnels there, but these are some of the main tunnels that I picked up. I wasn't picking up, I mean, there are little silver and gold responses there, but nothing like what's up here. And this is the triangle swamp area been looking at. And this, near the Nolan residence, is all the solid gold responses down here. So I don't think anybody's bothered looking at this area at all. So I reported that to archaeology out there, but I never got any reply back. I contacted a guy called Tony Sampson, who Salty Dog Sea Tours around the island, and he emailed me back to say, thanks for the information. I pass this on to the research team. If you need to call me, my number is blah, blah, blah. Here, see? So I thought, well, I'll have another go on this map, just in case I've made a mistake or something like that. So I did this yesterday, and I couldn't believe it. I was getting the gold responses out in exactly the same area, and this map has been improved because you've got a better image of the residence here, and of course the money pit area is vastly enlarged here. My feeling is that this was a gold mine here, and this is why they're picking up particles in the water. But I'm not so sure that you get particles in the water if you've got gold coins or gold bars or gold artifacts. Although water does take a message to a diviner, you will be able to pick up gold in water because water carries messages. I mean, they need to do a test on this. They need to get some solid gold and drop it into a bowl of water and then leave it there for 48 hours and then test the water to see whether it responds to gold. I mean, this seems a logical thing to do. And then if it doesn't, it means it's not the treasure that's giving them the gold. It's actually a gold mining area here. And that's why I'm picking up bits along the passageways and tunnels, you know. But, I mean, it's just something scientific that needs to be sorted out because you can have minted gold and you can have gold. People have been using my codes in Australia and actually finding gold with them. It's up to each.
It works.
It's another tool. That's all there is to it, you know. So I've sent that out.
Wouldn't it be interesting if the Oak Island people actually took notice of
and
your work?
They need to do. I'm sure that the Blaze films we've seen on the lost Japanese gold, they actually had some equipment that go down 60 odd feet to identify metals in the ground, which they were doing there and using there. And they actually found and saw the boxes, but they couldn't get to it because it's too dangerous because the Japanese actually put explosives in these areas. So the thing is, if they got that equipment there, maybe Oak Island should be getting access to the same equipment here and seeing if they can identify what metals there are down there responding with silver or gold.
Intriguing.
Yeah, well, never mind digging the tunnels, find out where the responses are, you know. But anyway,
well, Mr. Vincent, as always, absolutely
right,
fascinating.
Now, next little thing is...
I only popped in for a cup of tea, you know.
Yeah, well...
A piece of lemon drizzle cake.
The other thing that we were doing is a vast site in Colchester, NHS former hospital site, was being demolished to build a housing estate. And my fellow diviner, Joe, said, would I go over it to see what I could find? But he didn't tell me anything that had been found or anything. He just said, could I go over? And this was the map here. And I went over, printed off, and I found all these burials here. All these burials for male and female.
It's a huge site.
Oh, it's a vast site, yes. So basically, I reported this, and then he sent me back photographs. Says 2 of your things are on a hit, and they're already skeletons showing in the hits. So I then went and I thought, well, I wonder if this is a burial site that Boudicca could have been buried on after her death.
What made you think about Boudicca or
she's never been found, so her remains must have been reverently put somewhere. So therefore, I coded her here. Her code is 13712 492 6110 for death and decay. So I went over that and we got a response in this building here. It's a hodgepodge of buildings, little buildings, you know. So we got a response here. I sent this to Joe and he made contact and I think they took note of it. So I was awaiting to see what happened. And then Joe said, well, have you actually looked at the up-to-date Google map for this area? And I said, no. He said, well, have a look. So that's what it looks like now with all this...
all excavated.
Excavated. But the site of our area is just here. And I'm still getting the response there. So I've enlarged it up again. And here we've got this red sort of tank here. And I'm picking her burial up here. So the road was down here, the wooden building was here, and that was one of so many graves that were under that area there. So...
Are they actually looking for Boudicca?
Well, we've given them these maps, so hopefully they will be a little bit more interested in it and to progress with it to see what response they get. But I'm just going to give you a dowsing, because Joe's supposed to be going there. Now, I'm not using the
Just tell me where this is again.
In Colchester.
Colchester, thank you.
Yes, where, of course, the Romans attacked Boudicca, having burnt the place down, and they got their revenge. So the thing is, I'm just going to do this. Now, I've got to read the numbers out. So 13, 7, 12, 4, 9, 2, 6, 1, 10, 5. And look, there's a very strong response to that over that map area. So although it's covering the whole of that area, it's picking up that magnetic response just in one point on that map. So if I was to go over this map here, the very first one, that gave us a clue that this might be an area, there she is. Because don't forget, this is all we did with Henry I. Actually, previously we were asked, although we didn't know what it was we were looking for, we were just given a map of a car park with some zones on it. Could we find any human remains in there, which we did. But then later on we found it was Richard III's car park. There seemed to be all these things under car park. So anyway, I mean, this is not far from a road, under a building. So, right, 13712 4926 110 yeah, very strong response. So if I was to go to this map here, which is all the way in Zambia.
Sorry, where?
This is Zambia, right? Because I'm going to come to that in a minute.
Zambia?
Zambia, yeah, if I'm going to come to that in a minute. If I was to go over this, 13712 4926 110 there's absolutely no response whatsoever.
So no Boudicca in Zambia?
No Boudicca in Zambia. So the thing is, Boudicca is under there. Now, whether she's decayed completely, the problem is this, that if she was just put into a grave without any reverence, because I don't think the Romans would give her much reverence, and then she has some followers who just cleared up after and buried it there, you know. But that's what we're finding. You know, hopefully.
How very interesting.
Yeah. So, and this is what we're doing with Cleopatra in Egypt too. Because we believe that she too was moved by followers, because if her grave was left where it was, then it wouldn't have been respected by the change of power and politics, and therefore they moved it to somewhere where it wouldn't be found. But this system can find it. When I spoke to Dr. Howes about this, he said, oh, you can't go down. It wouldn't be down there, it's the wrong dynasty. They're completely missing the point that you've got to look at the ideology of the people who respected her, didn't want her to be mucked about with and lost to dust forever. So therefore it was moved, and I believe that we've got a tomb in an area which we reported, which has 2 females in it. And incidentally, because you can douse for stains of all things, there's a response to asp in there, which I believe that she committed suicide with an asp. So there's a maid and her and a response to asp. So there is a lot of archaeology going on around there, and I noticed that basically there's nothing in the middle here, which we pointed out. So maybe they are keeping it at the moment, who knows? Now, I wanted to come to this because area of whatever happened, because there's trees here. There's the main building there. Whether at that time the children were out playing here and then they saw something land and went through to here.
So let's just talk about what we're looking at. We're looking at a map.
An aerial map of the aerial school in Rua in Zambia, where in 1994 the children saw a UFO object land beyond the trees, just beyond the playground. Now, a lot has happened since 1994. Obviously, the building's expanded, etc., etc. As you can see, there's many more huts and things around. So the question was, I wanted to know, well, because UFOs leave stains, as we found in Wales and elsewhere, wherever it's been, because of their ideology and makeup, they leave a stain if they land on the ground. And it's as simple as that.
Yes, and that's like a sort of a frequency imprint, isn't it?
Yeah. So here's a UFO code here, which we use.
Let's have a look
even
at
in
that.
space. We can go over the space above Earth and pick them up when
So
they're
we've
there.
got blue, yellow,
grey, silver, white, and black.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
The silver looks
And
grey
that
as well.
blue is 3, because basically some blues can be pale blue, which is 15, and that's time. And that's why church clocks have pale blue dials for time. And they know about this, I can tell you. They keep very quiet about it, but they're all about colour sensory systems. So if I go over this map, basically, there's a very strong response to UFO traffic having been in that area of Staines. There we are. Now, the other thing too is we got something called the crop circle code, which the spheres, whether they are the same sort, I don't know, but it's just interesting.
And let's just have a little look at that code,
well,
Peter.
that's yellow, red, green, brown, orange, and white.
And you call that a crop
circle
code?
Well, it's the spheres. It's the spheres and orbs you see.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and the thing is, they can sometimes be seen, or they sometimes cannot be seen, because it depends on how much they are within our dimension of space and time.
I gotcha.
This is why pilots see tic-tacs. The tic-tac that they see is
Or
not
the Foo Fighters.
Yeah, the Foo Fighters. The recent naval declarations about tic-tacs going over aircraft carriers, they're not seeing the complete craft. The craft could be absolutely immense, spread over several dimensions of time and space. But the thing is, they're only seeing part of it, and unless it has that part of it, it can't see them properly. So it goes into the sea, but at the time that that's happening, the sea may not be there.
True.
Ocean levels are 400 feet higher now.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at this. Yeah, there is a crop. There is a
definite movement there.
So it's something to do with the orbs and spheres and the craft, because the craft is gigantic. It's about 1,000 feet across, and it has 30 odd spheres in it. Yes, so the mother craft is about 1,000 foot in diameter, has many decks. These like pyramid type orbs go up into it, up to the 5th floor deck, and each deck has its duty, like defence, scientific workshop and all that sort of thing. And in the middle you've got an enormous great void with the computers and everything around it and rooms and things, and then you've got the computer deck there and the command craft. You've also got the particle transfer, because they do particle transfer as well, and then you've got food supply, scientific study, and then on the top you've got energy, and you've got another life form up there that demands a different type of gas. It doesn't breathe oxygen. A lot of the other areas breathe oxygen. What I found was that when 5 spheres come down, when it's time for them to go back up, it's instant. If they tell you how fast these things go, they shoot up into those holes, and then another 5 come down. They cannot have more than 5 out at the same time, otherwise it disables the craft. So, and they will not go where there's thunderstorms or lightning storms, because this energy traverses the dimensions as well, electromagnetic storms. So you can blow them out of the sky. So quite often these crashes are caused because a craft has been shunted out of existence because it's got caught up in a vast... Because 5 come down, they lay their little particles out to be picked up on the map, gives you your symbol. Then when they finish drifting around and doing their own intelligence research, this is why it's intelligence, they then shoot up. But at the same time as they're going up into the slots, another 5 drop down. And they go to another part of the earth, and you pick up the next symbol, and so on, 6 times. So that's why in the step pyramid in Egypt, you've got 6 times 18 values for the symbol.
I still have not grasped all of that, Peter, but I think that's for another time.
Yeah.
So thank you very much then. Peter Vincent, our dowsing detective on...
remote viewing as well.
Oh, remote viewing, dowsing detective. What is it, the 2nd of October?
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Right, and I'll just blow the cobwebs out of my nose now.
I just want to give you a little bit of background to what Nessie could be. It seems that a plesiosaurus is the nearest thing, and that's getting people's vote so far. Very interesting bit of history. The very first full skeleton of a plesiosaurus was found in the UK in a place called Lyme Regis by a lady called Mary Anning, who was an avid fossil hunter. That was how she made her living. She was from a poor family, and her father, as a carpenter with some of his other family and his wife, would go regularly out along the beach, because in Lyme Regis, that area, there is this strata of rock that seems to have this incredible rich vein of these incredible creatures of times long ago. So the plesiosaurus is thought to have been around from around 205 million years or 215 million years ago, and going extinct 66 million years ago. So it had a good long innings. And there are some people who believe it actually never went extinct. So is that possibly what is the Loch Ness Monster? Now, in early October, there was an article in the Daily Mail showing a sonar image taken by Cruise Loch Ness by Sean Sloggy, and it does look very interesting. Peter wanted to do a bit of a deeper dive. the era that the plesiosaurus was found by, Mary Anning. This is now on display in the Natural History Museum in Britain, and she actually found it on the 10th of December in 1823. She was one of the main people that found, sourced, and then passed on to the science people, some of the very highly, let's say, qualified people, these incredible findings. And the plesiosaurus was just one of them. So that is really extraordinary. And that it was a woman. Yay! She wasn't credited with very much, I think, being very poor. Although she could read and write, they were very far down on the financial scale, which always makes it difficult. And that doesn't change with any era, does it? Let's have a look at Peter's dive into what went on at Loch Ness. Enjoy. So, Peter Vincent, our dowsing detective. And what are we looking at, Peter? This looks like is it Daily Mail?
Yeah, the Daily Mail. When I went through my paper on page 3 on the Friday, the 4th of October, I was quite amazed to see this article on sonar that had been picked up by one of the people who work on the boats on Loch Ness.
And that's this young man here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, if he's picked this up on sonar, we should be able to use this system that we use in coding animals and all sorts of things off the image, which I did. And I got this code here, 13269875. Registers against here. So if I...
So it registers against that image?
Yeah. So if I put this down here, see?
Thank you, Elizabeth. Cup of tea arrived.
Yeah,
I've already eaten the cake, as you can see. Right, back to business.
If I hold this here and I put 13269875, it crosses, wants to cross, right?
Indeed.
So
okay.
it wants to cross. So therefore, I thought, right, we've coded that. So let's go onto Google Earth and look at Loch Ness to see where they were possibly looking. So this is the top part of Loch Ness here. And I picked up 3 responses on this code.
Oh.
Right, so I reported that to try and drum up some interest.
So who did you report that to?
The museum.
In Loch Ness?
Loch Ness, yes.
Okay.
But it wasn't the right place to send it to. But in the end, Info at Cruises at Loch Ness did answer, and that's where this young gentleman worked.
Okay.
So he emailed me. He was quite amazed at this. So then when I studied this, certain people said, well, how did this animal get in here, or these animals get in here? Because they may be chasing the fish. The fact is the sea is up here, and there's a river going between there and the start of Loch Ness. So the thing is, it's too shallow in certain places. And I thought, well, they must be getting in somehow. So if you've got 3, they must be breeding. So therefore...
you think those are 3 separate...
three separate responses at the same time, yes.
It's not the same animal three times.
There's 3 of them. Yeah, there has to be more than one. You can't have just one coming on for hundreds of thousands of years.
Well, no, I grant you that.
So having got this code, I found responses over the Atlantic Ocean, the Southern Indian Ocean, but not in the Pacific, and also traces around the top of the North Sea. So that's basically where these animals are coming from. And of course, they have been seen by Cornish fishermen in the past.
So look, I have just popped by to see you on spec as I'm passing through after my little break. So have we got any idea?
There must be another way that they're getting in. So I use Green 6, which finds tunnels and caves. And I went over this map and I found that there is the traces of a large underground cavern system here, coming down into the loch, which can be down to 900 odd feet there, but this needs only be 400 odd feet here, because sea levels have risen 400 feet since the Ice Age.
So Peter, looking at that sonar object, and can we just go back to the picture of, have we gleaned what sort of size that may be?
Well, it's...
as the article said it?
Size of a plesiosaurus when it's fully grown.
Oh, that's okay.
30 feet, 40 feet long. But they say they get seals in there, you see. But a seal can clamber over rocks and things in a shallow river and then carry on when it gets a bit deeper. So they get seals in there. And there's also fish that don't belong in the loch getting in. So the question is, I mean, we've got an underground lake under this town that's down 600 plus feet, an enormous lake, and in it we've got blind fish. But the thing is, the fish have become blind because they never see daylight. And this was discovered just before 1969 by a university who did a pile driving exercise and found it. And they got samples of fish up, apparently, according to the then newspaper. So the thing is that you can have these vast underground caverns and water systems, which may have been started with volcanic activity or just purely the ice age melting and creating underground river systems, you know. So if you've got 20 to 30 feet of water underground, there's enough for that thing to swim through from the sea and come out between 900 and 400 feet up in the loch somewhere.
Right.
So the thing is, it's so dark down there apparently that they wouldn't know. So they really got to do some studying on this. It's no good just saying, oh, it's marsh gas. I mean, that is just too flippers there. You got the long neck there. That's just too much of a...
Okay.
So
that's great.
The thing is, we've now got contact with this gentleman here, Sean Sloggy. There he is on the top there. Basically, we'll see where it goes. But I've suggested if they find a diviner. Now, I thought about your chap up in Scotland.
Oh, Davey, yeah.
Yeah, he might like to get involved in this and go and do some on-site dowsing down there to see if he can pick up tunnels below in that particular area on the map.
We'll have to ask.
Yeah, if he does, then it means that there's confirmation that Green 6 works over there. I mean, there are tunnels and waterways and things all over the place, but this would be a giant one. This would be down several hundred feet. It would be about 30, 40, 50 feet wide. It would be a real tunnel dug by the Ice Age melts that come from the inlet here. The Beauty Firth.
It says Beauty Firth,
yeah. So somehow there's a link between that comes down to the loch. And maybe that little river there was never there until the sea levels really rose quite
how
high.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
But this is just a rough thing to work on. But the thing is, I have picked up these responses because yesterday we only had one in the loch and then we had one responding up here.
would that be the 9th?
Yeah,
the
up
9th
there,
of October.
There was one under Kirk. Now, you wouldn't get a plesiosaurus responding under Kirk Hill unless there's water under there for it to get through. And this is why they're never seen.
All right. Well,
yeah.
I think I shall have my tea now. Yeah. Thank you, Elizabeth. Fabulous. Great. Well, this is about the 4th time I'm trying to record this addendum to the video of ghosts and Loch Nessie. And this is by way of some work that Peter's been doing on missing people. And I've been, again, having a look with him, a bit like remote viewing. So he's looked at Nicola Bulley, as you will know, because we've done 2 in-depth episodes about her. That maybe some more information to come out from other parties. Then Nora Quinn, Susie Lamplugh, Madeleine McCann, of course. We've looked at all of those and Peter's done quite deep dives there. And so I asked him if he'd have a look at a young man who only recently I became aware of that was missing called Jack O'Sullivan. Oh, he disappeared from the Bristol area in March 2024 and hasn't been seen since. Every time Peter creates a unique code for a person, it is only for that person. You can have any work done, whether it's surgery, anything at all, whatever to change your looks. But your DNA remains the same. Hence, the codes are unique and will always remain unique in life and death to that person. So when Peter coded Jack O'Sullivan and then reported that he had found Jack's coding responding to several places, it's not what you wanted to hear. Now, we had the same issue with Nicola Bulley and Madeleine McCann. I will just say, if a person has a body part of another, for example, if I had a kidney donated to me, then I would also have with my own code, but I would also respond to the code of the person who gave me the kidney, because their kidney is unique to them and has their code. Lots of situations where organs are donated or tissue. What I can say, just by way of a short addendum, is that looks like what the situation is with these people I've just mentioned, and it's sad, but there seems to be a growing market, black and otherwise, for tissues and organs. I think there's a bit of an epidemic, and I'll leave that there. As usual, recording and reporting on all kinds of weird and sometimes not always so wonderful things. So this is the ET Newsroom, and I'm Joanna Summerscales, your host. That's all for now, folks. That winds up the addendum. Bye for now.